everybody. Welcome to Crypto Mondays NYC. We've got a great event tonight, I think. We got two great speakers. This week, as most of the people in the room know, we have what I think is the world's best NFT event, NFT.NYC, which is run by Jodee Rich here.
And Cameron, where's Cameron? Cameron, where? Right. And Cameron, actually Cameron did all the work, I just did all the talking.
Yeah.
And who's coming to NFT.NYC? Yay. Maybe we can we give some tickets away later, Cam?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
All right, and we're joined with Devin Finzer, who's the founder, one of the founders of OpenSea.
Co-founder with Alex.
Co-founder with Alex over here. So real quick, guys, why don't you just introduce yourself? And I said, if you want to add anything into just that quick overview, and also just about how you got to where you are in terms of crypto today.
So, Jodee Rich, born in New York, Riverside Drive, speak like an Australian because I was dragged off to Australia in 1962. Who knows what happened in 1962?
Cuban Missile.
Yes, Cuban Missile Crisis. So
well done.
Yeah, well done. So that's why I speak like this. Lou and I have done this all over the world together now, right? Tel Aviv, Singapore.
Yep.
LA?
We went kiteboarding in Singapore. This man kiteboards.
Yes. Actually, I have a great picture of Lou off the Singapore airport runway learning to kiteboard. How did I come to crypto? I've been in tech all my life. I'm a computer scientist and a marketing guy, and came to blockchain when we were doing some work for Ripple about 6 years ago. We built one of the first point-of-sale wallets for Ripple. And what I dream about and what I wake up at 2 a.m. thinking about is how do we create more collaboration and engagement? And Lou, coincidentally, you think about the same stuff, right? So we became mates quite a few years ago. And my vision is that we can use tokens and we can use the blockchain to actually increase collaboration. And so there's quite a theme, an engagement theme to the narrative at NFT.NYC that's coming up, and some really fun things that we can talk about too with OpenSea.
And OpenSea is a partner in NFT.NYC as well, right?
That's correct.
Exactly.
So my name is Devin Finzer, one of the co-founders along with Alex of OpenSea. I got into crypto in 2017, so a little bit late, I suppose. But Alex and I were really excited about CryptoKitties, and we launched OpenSea, which is really just, at the time, a marketplace just for CryptoKitties.
So is CryptoKitty, I mean, is that how you saw the crypto light, or before that?
A bit before that. I was very interested in decentralized networks. I think once you reach a certain level of understanding of how crypto works, you can't really go back. So that certainly happened for me. And then CryptoKitties kind of happened at that time and was the first application to target more of a mainstream user as opposed to just a speculator or someone interested in the financial side of crypto. And that's really what inspired us to go and start a company around it. And then,
I was going to remind you that about 18 months ago we had spaghetti arrabbiata down at Bar Pitti,
yeah.
And we were both looking at our spaghetti together, wondering when this NFT thing would take off.
Yep.
And how cool it's taken off.
Yeah. So Jodee kind of came to me with this idea for an NFT conference in New York, and I think naively at the time I said, let's do it. But it's
not knowing what you were getting yourself into.
Exactly. But he and Cameron and their team have really been the ones doing all the logistics, figuring all this out. OpenSea, we've really just kind of helped reaching out to our partners and things like that. These guys deserve the majority of the credit for putting on this amazing event that was really, really fantastic last year, and I think will be even better this year.
Yeah, it was really fantastic last year. And so why don't you talk about what did you learn kind of the first year and what's going to be different this year than last year?
So one of the things that we learned was about 3 weeks before the event last year, we had more speakers than attendees.
And that's a bad thing? Yeah.
Which was really scary. And then it picked up in the last couple of weeks, and we ended up with over 400 people. Last year was really all about ideas and we had to sort of cut out about half of the speakers who applied because some of the ideas were just sort of so idea-y. They weren't really very solid. This year we've had over 200 speaker applications, Lou, and 90% of them have been amazing. The quality of speaker applications has been huge, and Cameron's been wrestling with, how do we get all these people on? So we have over 100 speakers, and most of the speakers this year are actually talking about things that are real and that's happened. And you've seen that in your business, haven't you?
Yeah. Yeah, I think one exciting difference between last year and this year is just a lot more things have actually launched. So there's a lot more you can kind of get your hands on, play around with, and then also the kind of diversity of the space has increased a lot. I think last year it was primarily around gaming, but this year there's domain names, there's a lot of stuff happening in digital art, there's things like Unlock Protocol, which allow you to subscribe to things using NFTs. It's just a lot of new stuff and a lot of things that have shipped and actually hit like real people outside of the NFT space.
We even had one speaker who we're putting up on stage who thinks that he can tokenize humans. I think he's probably 10 years ahead of his time, but that's going to be a really interesting talk.
Well, I would love to be tokenized
and again, guys, if you want to speak, because in the back we can still hear a lot of chatter, which makes it hard for people to hear. So again, if you want to talk, you can go back to the Ainsworth around the corner and yap. But let me ask you the last question. Also, everybody should know I'm going to ask questions for about 20 minutes, and then we'll leave 10 minutes of questions from the audience. So if anybody there has a question that they want to ask, we'll be open for questions in like 10 minutes. But let me ask you, what are you most excited about that's coming up? That's going to be at NFT.NYC.
I'm most excited that the community is coming together in one place, and from an engagement point of view, I'm super excited that we've actually worked out how to create a domain name token that resolves on both the web and wallet. So I can put jodeerich.cred into a Chrome browser and you can see stuff about me, or you can send money to jodeerich.cred or NFTs to jodeerich.cred. And we're doing that with our friends at OpenSea. We're doing a big auction of domain tokens. I'm excited about that. And there's one other thing.
Well, no, I just want to ask you a question about that,
Yep.
just real quick, and I'll let you get to be one other thing. But can you just real quick kind of explain to the people so that they know, understand, how it's different than .eth?
Okay, great. So, does everyone know what a top-level domain is? Yes? Great. A top-level domain is like .com. And that's one of the other things that Lou and I have in common, that we've both been involved in that industry. So we own .Kred, which is a top-level domain, and we have a contract with ICANN, who regulate the internet, so that any .Kred domain name will resolve on a web browser. We have now completed with the Ethereum name service an integration that absolutely aligns anything that you do with your .Kred domain between DNS and ENS. And we've created a token that controls the DNS and the ENS. The difference, of course, between .eth and .Kred then is that .eth is a wallet address and .Kred is both a informational web address and a wallet address. And what we've done with this domain token that we're releasing is that we can attach a royalty that can be paid to the original owner of the domain as the domain gets sold from one person to another. And we've also simplified the domain sale transaction because the token, as the token gets passed around or sold, always controls the DNS and the ENS. So that makes the sale of a domain much simpler than it is at the moment in the industry.
Yeah, super. And so you you said you had one more thing you were most excited about.
Right. So have you guys heard that Nike have actually just recently received a patent for non-fungible tokens? Who is aware of that? Yes. I think that's huge news because it means that mainstream brands can look at what Nike are doing and go, oh my gosh, we need to be part of this thing. And Nike have added all sorts of wild and crazy things into their patent. You can breed your Nike virtual shoe. If you use your real shoes and you've got one of those Nike Fitbit things, then that enhances the powers of your virtual shoe. Your virtual shoe can morph into different things, and then apparently Nike will take your virtual shoe and turn it into a real shoe with the morphing things that you did online. And then finally you can apparently use your Nike NFT inside games. And so I'm very excited about that, and I'm going to be talking about that on Thursday as well.
So one thing that excites me about the conference is, in some ways, the NFT space has come a really long way. I think if you look at, as we mentioned, a lot of new projects, a lot of new areas that people are applying NFTs, a lot of experimentation. But then in other ways, it's still a lot of the same people, which is actually really nice. I think it's great to see the dedication of the community that was around in even late 2017 and excited about CryptoKitties sticking around. There have been a few projects that have kind of come and went, but for the most part, I would say that a lot of these projects started really early in 2018 and have just continued building and are still super passionate, super excited about the space. And the other thing is that NFTs are still there, right? So some of those projects that launched in early 2018 and maybe the website shut down, you can still go and find those kind of antiques. So I think that's one of the magical things about the space is that you have this kind of longevity of these digital assets, and it shows not only in the assets themselves, but also the community and how dedicated they are to even the projects that started a long time ago. So
that's actually a super interesting point, that for a consumer, if they acquire an NFT, they don't have to worry about whether that brand is going to still be in business in a year or two, because the NFT lives forever. And when you think about that, we as consumers go back time and time again to brands that we trust, because we know that if there's a problem, we can get a refund or we can get something fixed. Well, that problem is solved by blockchain and NFTs, because the companies that you referred to who may not be around anymore, they produced NFTs that still work, and that's really cool.
So, Devin, OpenSea is an integral part of the NFT ecosystem now. Can you talk about you talked a little about the forum, but now that you've been around for 2.5 years, what have you learned? What have you been surprised by, and where do you think we're going over the next couple of years?
So I published a post a couple of weeks ago that kind of gives a more in-depth overview of what happened in the NFT space since 2017. It's called the NFT Bible. So definitely Google that and check it out if you're interested in learning more about the space, but it kind of summarizes all of our learnings from operating OpenSea. I think the first thing that comes to mind is there's that quote that says people typically overestimate how fast things will happen, but underestimate this sort of enormity of the impact of these things. And I think there was that to some extent when we first started OpenSea. We thought people would just immediately start going crazy for these new things like NFTs. There'd be tons of volume on our marketplace, and just things would explode immediately. And I think that we had to kind of reset our expectations and realize that people only really purchase things if they have some utility and some value or some provenance associated with famous artist or a celebrity or something like that. So I think the whole industry kind of realized that CryptoKitties was just the beginning, and it kind of got people excited about this, but that there was a lot of building that had to be done in order for this to actually become something that mainstream users would be excited about. That being said, we have seen really exciting growth of the market over the last 2 years. We estimate that right now the market for NFTs is around 2 to 3 million per month in volume, and this is a space that really,
and let me.
Oh, go for it.
No, I just want to clarify. When you say 2 to 3 million, that's in trading volume.
Yeah.
And what are is there particular categories in terms of kind of the metrics, of what makes that up?
Right. So $2 to $3 million in trading volume. This is like on-chain trading. So this is users going and setting up a wallet, going and purchasing ETH, going and buying something, which is quite a lot of user friction at the moment. The main categories we've seen, gaming is still pretty dominant. So virtual world projects like Decentraland and CryptoVoxels, card trading games like Gods Unchained. These are the dominant categories because they're sort of a natural analog between traditional games where there is sometimes some marketplace functionality and these new types of crypto games where you're purchasing it because either you want to speculate on it or it's useful inside of some environment. The categories that have been a little more surprising or more interesting are things like digital art, where there's not actually immediate utility, you can't use it inside of a game, but there's provenance associated with the asset. So there's a new breed of crypto artists, and I think this is super exciting, that are kind of making a name for themselves by creating digital art that is immortalized on the blockchain. And then the third category is kind of what we spoke to earlier with things like domain names, things like event tickets, even a project called Urbit, which is just kind of a wildcard project but has these digital assets. So I think there's this third category of kind of grab bag items that's starting to emerge and be really interesting as well.
And just in terms of interesting projects, and I'm sorry, I said before we started I was going to let a couple people yap, and before questions I want to bring them up here, but first I'd like to have Alex come up. So at ETH Denver, Alex, coming up, because I just want you to talk about your project, just for like a minute. So at ETH Denver, I thought Alex, had this, one of the most interesting projects if you're into NFTs like I am. And then in addition, one of the revelations to me of what's going on in the Ethereum community was Metacartel. So Alex, you just want to quickly touch on both of those.
For sure. So first I can touch on Metacartel. So Metacartel is a DAO, so it's a sort of entity where people collaborate, not incorporated anywhere, but incorporated on the Ethereum blockchain. And so we fund pretty much like Ethereum crypto startups at very, very early stages. So if you have like NFT projects, like we know there's a lot of frictions, and so it's very experimental. Perhaps like you can message me or Peter Pan, I can just redirect you, and we can give you like a grant or even bigger funding. So that's what Metacartel. For Rocket, I'm really interested at the intersection between NFT and DeFi, because I think that it's really hard to price an NFT, there's no liquidity, there's also low market demand, and so I think, Rocket is a project that takes NFT as collateral, so that you can get a loan against it, and so that could end up being things like virtual mortgage, real estate, PR real estate, which is like Decentraland that's mentioned on NFT.NYC Day, or CryptoVoxels. So I'm really trying to extract value out of NFT so that we can better price them, and we can just boost the space altogether and become an OpenSea.
Really super interesting stuff. And I guess Vinay, is that was going to come up to mention something, so if you're here, you're welcome to come up and take the microphone. Last question before we open it up to questions from the audience. You want to talk about what's been the most surprising thing now for you, now that you're in the second year, you're starting your own company. Where do you think we're going to be in a year if we're sitting here yapping again? What is it that you're most looking forward to?
So tomorrow I'm speaking at a conference that's all about enterprise. And that's exciting, and I think that we're going to see NFTs being experimented with by more and more brands and more enterprise. We're doing a project in LA with a very large retailer where we give wallets to shoppers. They don't even know it's a wallet, but it's a place where they can put tokens, and the tokens can be redeemed for avocados the day before the avocados go bad, to make sure that all the avocados go out of the shop. And that's a cool project, so I'm going to be talking about that tomorrow. I think in a year we're going to see lots of experimentation by much more traditional brands and corporates.
Okay, great. And with that, I'd like to open it up for questions if you haven't. So here, come get the microphone.
Thank you. Hi. Jodee, how do I acquire my domain?
Can you introduce yourself?
I'm James Haft. I'm one of the founders of CryptoMondays, and really happy to be here. I think NFTs are a thing also. How do I acquire my domain name? And what's the process? Is it open now?
Brilliant. Thank you for that question. Cameron, where are you? Cameron, can you come up for a minute? So we are announcing with OpenSea on Thursday the beginning of the what's called the sunrise period for domains, and we're allowing early adopters to pre-register starting next week, and then there'll be an auction on between the 20th of March and the 20th of April.
Is there a website?
Yes, there is. Domains.Kred.
Repeat the question for the audience.
Is there a website? Domains.Kred. And then over the next 60 days, there'll be a pre-registration process, an auction process, and then general availability on the 20th of April. That's right, isn't it?
Yep. Correct. And to add to that, thanks to everyone that put their hand up that said that they're coming to NFT.NYC. All of the speakers and all of the attendees at NFT.NYC are actually going to receive their Kred domain for free. So we're going to put
it closer to that.
the Kred domain in the NFT swag bag.
Yes.
Anyone that remembers last year at NFT.NYC, what we do with NFT.Kred, our platform, is we distribute tokens. We've rolled it out to about 15 events in the last year, including Consensus, where we released or distributed 300,000 tokens, I think. So for NFT.NYC this year, every attendee and every speaker in their NFT swag bag will also receive a Kred ENS DNS domain token.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, great. Anybody else have any questions?
You mentioned you're going to an enterprise conference or something along those lines, some type of enterprise speaking engagement. And then you also said you sit here in a year, you expect to see a lot more experimentation on the enterprise side. I find that really interesting because it's hard to get some information right now about whether that's working or not. Because you see a lot, you see, I think it was maybe Norse or Maersk, one of the major shippers, that rolled out an enterprise blockchain and that didn't work. Walmart had, I think, with cabbages, and that didn't work. And then we come back around, we find that there's E. coli, and maybe it still is working. So I just don't know where that's at right now, and I get a lot of really conflicting information from, the press and different sources. So it sounds like you're a little bit closer to that flame, and I was just really curious, kind of, if you wouldn't mind sort of just expanding on that a little bit.
There's a group called the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance, and they have a standard for NFTs. It's called TTF.
Yeah, Token Taxonomy Foundation.
Yes, Token Taxonomy Foundation. And I'm speaking at the Microsoft Conference Center in Times Square tomorrow to about 100 enterprise and brands who are interested in experimenting. And I agree with you that there's been some people who haven't quite worked out how to do it yet, but we're at that stage. I think for the next year or so we're going to see lots of successes and lots of failures, and they'll work out how they want to use NFTs in their business. What NFTs do, which is something that really gives me goosebumps, is they break down the silos across industries. Because if I make an NFT in a retail industry using the TTF protocol, it should be able to be used by any retailer. And so, one of the things that keeps me awake is this worry that as humans we are duplicating so much effort, right? This NFT across blockchain is going to fix that, I think. At least it's going to help that.
Okay, any other questions from the audience? I can't tell their hands up. Going once, going twice. And I think we're good. As I said, we're right at the half-hour mark, so this is great. Let's give these guys a big hand. This was an awesome day. Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody.